In this lesson, we're going to take a look at angles that are not very special. They come from, they're not central angles that come from the center of the circle, and they're not inscribed angles which sit on the circumference of the circle. They're not even an angle created by a tangent. In this lesson, we're going to just create some random chords. So we'll do that now by selecting a point on the circumference, another point on the circumference, a third, and the fourth. So I have 4 points that are sitting on the circumference, and we'll just make segments out of those points. So we'll go from B to C and from D to E. And you'll notice that when I do that, even if I use secants instead of chords, it creates 2 or 4 angles on the inside of the circle. Now these particular angles on the inside of the circle, well, they're not tied to anything. They're not tied to central angles, and they're not an inscribed angle. So let's find the intersecting point of these two chords, and we'll put a point right there, point F. Now what we want to do is we want to explore, there is indeed a relationship between the angles on the inside here and how they are connected to the arcs. So what we're going to do is we are going to measure the angles, measure each angle. Clearly these two angles would be the same because they're vertical angles, just as these two angles up here would be the same because for the same reason, vertical angles. So let's go ahead and measure how big each one of these is. We'll just measure angle CFE. And again, knowing that angle BFD would be the same measurement. Okay, so and again, I'm going to round my numbers to no 0 decimal places just to make it a little easier to work with and read. Okay, now what we want to do is the connection between these random angles and these arc measures. We want to measure the arc here. We want to measure arc EF, and we want to measure arc BD. We actually want the opening of those arcs. To find the measure of that arc, we're going to have to create a central angle. That's the way we're going to make the connection there. So to make the central angle, again, go to the center, go up to E, go to C, and just let's make these dashed lines just to separate them from the other chords we've made. And so I want that to be dashed, and then I would also like this one to be dashed. And in fact, I probably don't need to make them dash because I'm going to end up hiding them in a second. So I really just want to get the measurement of that arc, and that arc right there, that minor arc, will match the central angle. So let's go ahead and measure that. And that arc is about 25 degrees, or 35 degrees, sorry. Now it doesn't look like there's any connection between the 35 and the 56. It's clearly not half, it's not the same. We'll leave that there. And then I'm going to create another central angle to measure the other arc. We want this minor arc right here. So let's go ahead and do that again. We'll create a central angle. And it automatically does the dashed lines. And it gets a little messy on the screen, but the goal is to see what the connection is. We want to know how big this is. So let's go ahead and measure that angle. And that central angle is 76 degrees. Okay, again, it doesn't look like there's any connection between them. So we have a 35 degree angle, we have a 76 degree angle, and a 56 degree angle. Let's just get rid of these lines. We're going to hide these here just to clean it up a little bit. Control G hides them for me. Okay, and now, so now I still have this little angle mark, so I can see how big it is, and then I'll just move this back over here. So then that shows me how big this arc is, and then you can change the size of each one. Now let's take a look at this 43 degree angle. The 43 degree angle, let's do a little arithmetic here. Wait for my calculator to pop up. Eventually it'll be here. Okay, still waiting for the calculator. Okay, finally we have it up on screen. And what we want to do here is we want to see if there's a connection between these angles, those random angles, and the arc length. So we can go ahead and just 43 degrees is the angle we're interested in. The 35 degrees is that arc on the top, and the 52 degrees is the arc on the bottom. So this is the top arc, and then this other one is the bottom arc. So is there a connection? And sure enough, if you take that top arc measurement, which is 35 degrees, and you add it to the bottom arc measurement, which is 52 degrees, we get 87 degrees. And if you take half of that, we'll get to 43. Now there's rounding, so let me take GeoGebra and do 1 decimal place, and I think you can see if I use more accurate numbers, instead of 35 we'll use 34.8 plus the 52 and then take that answer and divide by 2, we'll get to 43.4, which matches. So the reason it was off slightly before is because of the rounding. So there is a relationship between these small angles that are just randomly created using chords and the arcs that they intercept. This 43.4 degrees is exactly 1/2 of the sum of these two arcs that it intercepts. It'll always work that way. In fact, if we go ahead and move it around a little bit, let's try a couple different examples. Let's take point C, for example, and drag that down a little bit so it changes all of our values. Let's bring it all the way down here, for example. And I don't know, take point D and we'll really make it this small arc over here. So now we're dealing with a major arc over here and a minor arc over here. So if you follow the central angles, here's a central angle. The central angle for this one is 100, almost 178 degrees. And that minor arc right there, the central angle, is 21.2. Well, if I take the major arc, take the measurement of it, add it to the measurement of the small minor arc, divide by 2, it should equal this angle right here. And if we use the calculator, we'll see that that works. So we have the 177, just slightly off the screen here, 177.6 plus the 21.2, and then we'll divide that by 2, and it should equal the 99.4, and it does. And so that's the connection between those random angles and the arc measures. They are a connection. So if you, in fact, the same would hold true. And by the way, you can just finish all the angles on the inside, right? If you knew this was 65.5 here, this angle is 65.5, then this one's 65.5. And then this top angle right here, if you were interested in finding that angle, then all you would do is take 180 minus the 65.5 to get this one, and then these two would be vertical angles. So you can get all the angles just based on that one piece of information. Okay, and one last thing for this lesson is, what if you knew the outside arc, but you didn't know the, like for example, you knew this bigger arc here, but you didn't know the smaller arc, and you knew this angle? Well, all you would do is you would set up an equation. This arc plus the unknown arc divided by 2 would equal this value right here. And then that's how you could back into those. You'll get some practice on those problems in this lesson.